Hello and welcome to
Gank That Drank,
the Supernatural Drinking Game Podcast. This is Season 2, Episode 9, Heart and Hollywood.
You all know that in every episode of Gank That Drank, we assign ourselves the task of cultivating the perfect drinking game that is going to pair with the aromatic, therapeutic, and I'm going to go with chill television show, Supernatural.
I would argue it has zero chill.
Zero chill? I think it's pretty chill show.
Of course, after we watch and play, we will discuss both the episodes we watched while tipsy, if we're lucky, and garbage
just
pail
tipsy
kids
if we're really lucky.
not. Then we'll evaluate the rules we played in our quest to curate for you, gentle listener, the perfect Supernatural Season 2 drinking game. I'm Krissy Lenz.
And I am Nate McWhorter.
We're both improvisers at National Comedy Theater, and tonight we're watching episode 17 of Season 2, Heart. Kim Manners episode. Pretty excited about that. Originally aired March 22nd, 2007.
And we're also watching episode 18 already, yeah. Hollywood Babylon, directed by Phil Sgriggia. I don't know how to say his last name.
And written by Ben Edlund.
Yes.
Edlund, who is Carver Edlund's namesake.
Released on April 19th, 2007 to an audience of 3.25 million people.
Yeah. And one of your favorite episodes.
Yes, it's actually I believe it's the first episode of Supernatural I ever watched. Maybe other than the pilot. I think you showed me the pilot, and then I think I just caught this on like a TNT in the middle of the afternoon or something like that. And it's like the perfect amount of kind of like hokey to self-aware that I really like. So I think the episode that got me like really all bought in on Supernatural as a show. The pilot's great. We love the pilot.
The pilot is perfect.
It's perfect, but I kind of didn't watch it after the pilot until then. I came across this episode and I was like, oh, okay, I think I got to give this a shot.
I feel like Supernatural, and there are certain shows where the oeuvre, right, or the canon is just too dense that you can't just jump in on episode 1 and then watch your way through. I feel like Doctor Who is like that. I feel like Supernatural is like that. So you need somebody to guide you, to say, okay, watch the pilot, then you get the gist of it, then hop on over to Hollywood Babylon, then hop way down to season 4 and watch this episode. Then, if you're in at that point, now you can go back and start watching your way through. Or you can, listen to this podcast and just take note of all the skippable episodes.
Exactly. And then skip them, or at least you drank during them, in which case that made it a little better.
In Season 3, when we publish or maybe in Season 2, when we publish our drinking game rules, let's say which episodes we deemed skippable and give them the perfect Season 2.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
great.
Yes.
So let's talk about what we're drinking before we talk about the rules, because we're actually drinking something that we should talk about.
Yes. You are drinking. No, I am drinking a Singularity, which is from Oro Brewing Company here on Main Street in Mesa, Arizona.
Right next door to the National Comedy Theater.
What? Yes, so pop on by Oro and patronize them and give them your money in exchange for delicious, delicious beer.
Yes. And I'm just drinking plain old Michelob Ultra, like a
Who
boring,
is not a sponsor.
dull
Neither is
dud.
Oro, but we're probably closer to an Oro sponsorship than a Budweiser sponsorship.
So we have decided that with only 2 episodes left.
Really? Wow. Yeah, that's insane.
We're not going to continue to add rules. We are going to take the next 2 opportunities to eliminate rules that we feel have had their day. We can either eliminate them because they never happen, we can eliminate them because they happen too frickin' much, or we can eliminate them just because we got sick of them. Because that's part of curating the perfect drinking game too, is that just because we add a rule doesn't mean we have to keep it.
Right, and if it's too hard to keep track of or too whatever, then we don't want that. We don't want it to be a burden.
We want you to have fun.
Yeah.
We don't want you to end up like we did at the end of episode 8.
Oh, man.
So, all right, what are you eliminating?
I am eliminating Slam because I just feel like it's too difficult / it happens way too much.
It does. We'll put an asterisk before that rule and say, hey, if you want to get
this expert
shit-faced,
level drinking game,
then you add that one.
Yeah.
I'm going to eliminate Wi-Fi because even though every time they're outdoors at a burger place and there's no way they're getting Wi-Fi, I feel like we're in 2007 now. Maybe it's more prevalent than we think it is. And I'm just like, I'm over it as a novelty.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. What would you, do we have outdated tech on the list at the moment?
We do not.
We do not. I would almost say that outdated tech could totally replace that and be an acceptable replacement in the same vein, if that makes sense.
It was also the very first rule we added this season.
Oh, well, yeah.
All right, but we are still playing rock salt, concussion, toxic masculinity,
Woohoo.
cuts, someone dies, headache, jump scare, positive masculinity, copy a plot, broken furniture, black eyes, fake names, stay in the circle, EMF, and pop culture references.
Still a lot of rules.
It's a lot
Still
of
a
rules.
lot.
We're going to eliminate at least 4 more before we're done.
Do you find yourself when you're watching Supernatural in the wild and not in this vacuum that we watch it in the podcast? Do you find yourself like, oh, that's a rule?
I say it aloud. I say it aloud to the kids. We watched the 300th episode, which aired recently, all together on the couch, even though like nobody else in my family had any clue like what was happening. And I cried copiously.
Oh, wow.
I kept being like,
I'm so close.
Someone dies, take a drink. Positive masculinity, take 2 drinks. Like, I was just saying it out loud. My family was just like, what's happening to Mom?
Yeah, I definitely found myself saying things out loud while watching an episode, or if I'm just got it on and I'm working on something and I hear, I just like, oh, take a drink.
Yep.
So.
Copy a plot. Copy a plot.
Oh, gosh,
take a drink. All right, so we are off to watch Heart and Hollywood Babylon, and we will see you on the other side. And we're back. All right, do you want to do... I'm going to let you do Hollywood Babylon.
Yeah, I want to do Hollywood Babylon.
Because that's one of your favorites.
Yes, absolutely.
So Heart is just from get-go, a completely skippable episode. So boring. So, fun fact, we actually were watching a episode from season 11 for like 3 full minutes going, no, I'm pretty sure this is it. And there was even a heart punched out.
Yeah, I was sitting there going, I think this is a later season because I just watched it fairly recently.
So this one, there's a beautiful woman. She's at a party. Her boss is like, hey, I need you to come back to the office with me. She's like, oh, you silly goose. I already called you a cab, so we counted that as toxic masculinity.
Before we dive super into it, I just want to point out this episode takes place in San Francisco, and Hollywood Babylon takes place in Los Angeles. So we have Supernatural is, if this were a golf tour, they're on the West Coast swing right now. But I find it interesting as far as like a topic of, and of course, I'm always obsessed with the geography of the show. Early on in the show here we have, now we're, there is an episode I think early on where they go to New York and they're in San Francisco and Los Angeles. Obviously, like Sammy at the very, very beginning is in San Francisco. Well, he's at Stanford, so he's in the Bay Area.
But the rest of the time they're kind of in the middle.
But the rest of the time they're just like wandering around the Dakotas and Kansas. I think there's a Florida episode early on. Like they kind of like hit the coasts early in the show, and then pretty much are like, and we're gonna leave them in the Midwest forever and ever. Anyway, so I just wanted to point that out. That I think it's funny we're in our like West Coast swing here.
So there's a beautiful woman, and she's being followed by a menacing alternative rocker. Sam and Dean, of course, come upon her, and just everyone believes that he's like the hottest 20-year-old detective that's ever lived. They give their last names as directors of werewolf movies, because this is our first werewolf episode. They do werewolf parkour. I'm just going to go really fast through it because...
And the I guess most recognizable werewolf, was it?
American Werewolf in
London, which is...
John Landis.
I watched that movie for the very first time as maybe an 11-year-old.
That's too young.
Yeah. Yes, it is. Yes, I remember... I just want to tell this story real quick. I remember I was over at a friend's house, and his dad was like, oh, we're going to watch American Werewolf and it was American Werewolf in London. Yeah, it wasn't.
There's American Werewolf in London, and then later there's American Werewolf in Paris, which came out in like the 90s.
So I want to say it was London. And there's definitely like a nude scene in it. And I remember the dad like very terribly and definitely not trying hard at all to like cover up the TV screen for us.
God.
As
You should
like
cover your
small-
eyes.
He's like standing in front of the TV, but then like holding his arms out so we can see under his arms. He was being a cool dad to a couple of 11-year-olds, but I just thought that was my fun American Werewolf in London story. Only time I've ever seen the movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah.
So we get to see the wolf's eye view. Sammy is hanging out with the woman who they're trying to protect, and she's like, she dumps all her underpants out on a table.
What a weird, uncomfortable scene.
No, you shouldn't do that.
First she says, do you want to go sit on the couch? It's way more comfortable. And Sammy, being the guy that he is, like, no, I'm good here at the kitchen table. I'm good.
And Dean, meanwhile, is like, oh, I bet you're not even sitting on the couch.
Which he called after he moved to the couch. He's like, I bet you're sitting on the couch, not thinking of something to say to her or whatever. But he only moved to the couch because she dumps her underwear.
And dumps them out. But before
on
that,
the kitchen
the boys
table.
Rochambeau to see who gets to stay with the sexy lady and who gets to go out on the beat hooves for the werewolf.
Not the first
Anyway,
or last time that happens.
They figure out that she's the werewolf. And Sammy is, of course, is like, we can't kill her. And then she gets, he's like, we have to, if we kill the vampire that made her.
Werewolf.
Right.
Or
Sorry.
the vampire.
It's a werewolf.
Yeah.
If we kill the werewolf that made her, then she won't be a werewolf anymore, which that's never, ever been part of werewolf lore. So they figure out that it's her neighbor, and they kill him. And then they wait to see if she will turn. In the meantime,
but while
she and
you're
Sammy
waiting,
find a way to get to the Bone Zone.
You might as well.
They take the bullet train to Pound Town, and I kept telling you, like, we're watching this episode and we're like, oh, this is so boring. This is so lame. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that they do it. Like, I'm pretty sure at some point they take it to the Bone Zone, which is like, it's so disappointing, because Sammy, if all the people that he could have had like a real connection to was that woman from Providence. Yeah.
Whoa. She was amazing.
And he did not.
And then he gets real weepy about this chick.
Yep.
And I don't mean call her a chick. Sorry. This woman, he gets real weepy about her.
She's a werewolf.
But the woman, the art
Yeah.
dilettante.
Yep. She's
From
clearly the better part.
Rhode Island. Whoa.
Season 1. But the love scene is so gross.
It's not
It's
good.
yucky.
It's not good. The music is gross.
It's too, like, the kissing is munchy. It's like,
aggressive.
Arr, arr, arr,
yeah,
arr.
it's very. Maybe they're going for a werewolf type of thing. I don't know. It's
But you know what?
uncomfortable.
I figured out, like, the reason he takes her to the Bone Zone and not the girl from Providence is because the girl from Providence was, like, fully possessed of herself. And this woman is broken. And he's like, okay, I can be with this broken woman.
So is that toxically masculine?
It might be.
It might be. Actually.
It might be.
Yeah.
And then in the end, he has to kill her, even though Sammy always wants to save the monster. They can't save her. She turns into a werewolf again, and he has to kill her.
And he's all tears streaming down the face because he's got to go kill her.
So I have some notes about that.
Yes.
According to IMDb, he used his actorly skills of sense memory to recall a time when he had to have his beloved pets put down. And so that was the memory he was relying on, Jared Padalecki.
Interesting.
To take him through that moment of having to put her down. Anyway.
They were really, really trying hard to get him to act early on.
Yep.
Really trying hard.
Yeah. So they give their names as Dante and Landis. So Joe Dante directed The Howling. He also directed one of my favorite movies, The Burbs. And John Landis directed An American Werewolf in London. All right. Skippable. Don't watch this episode.
Don't watch it. No lessons learned.
Hollywood Babylon.
Hollywood Babylon is just so fantastic. We start out on set of a Hollywood horror film, and we actually start out in the film itself with our actress Tara, who is terrible at screaming, and
Her scream is so low. It's like,
and
it's
they
gross.
try it. I love the part where she's like, it's the tennis ball, and they have a tennis ball just taped to the top of the camera, of the handheld camera. And they're like, oh, that's just for CGI purposes. Once it's rendered, it's going to be amazing. And I don't know a lot about filmmaking. I will give you that. And I know that they do use tennis balls or markers, and they usually like on a stick or on a whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're
Usually
ever
they're on a
on
stick.
top of the camera.
No, the only point of a tennis ball is to show you,
Where
the
thing
actor,
is.
where to put your
Right,
eyes.
where to put your eyes. Right, right. And I get that. And so that comment bugged me. And I don't know why I'm fixating on that, because there's so many great little comments in this episode just as we go along. So the boys show up because there's been a murder. We get it. She actually gets the scream. She nails the scream that she fails to nail the tennis ball when Frank, the weird crew member that we get like a weird scene with her and him at the very beginning, he ends up tangled up in some wires. The boys show up and they're making two quick lines that I love. One, they're on the tram, which is clearly like a Warner Brothers lot or Universal lot tram.
Or like a Pee-wee's Big Adventure situation.
And they say, oh, this is where they filmed Gilmore Girls, which of course we all know Jared Padalecki is on. And they just got this close-up of Sammy all like nervous, and he's like, okay, we gotta go.
They also ended by saying, over here's where they shot Lois and Clark, which is a reference to Smallville, which Jared Jensen Ackles was on.
Yes, yeah. And so they get out of the tram there. And then I love, and I remember this as one of the lines that stuck with me from when I first watched it, when they say, I think it's
practically
Dean
Canadian.
Who says like, what is this? Does this even look like LA? It's pretty much like Canadian weather right now, which of course they filmed the show in Canada. So it's just a brilliantly so self-reflexive episode.
So yeah, if the Trickster episode is the first time that they really start winking and leaning into like what they can do with the format, this is the first episode where they're like, let's go for it.
Oh, just let's ham it.
Every bell, every whistle.
Yeah, like almost all fourth wall breaking.
So there's
we
even more.
We stopped it early. Oh, okay. We'll go back to
there's
it.
Even more. So
yes.
Dean says to Tara, the girl that he is, the actress, that he loved her in Boogeyman. Boogeyman was a 2005 movie. The script was written by Supernatural creator Eric Kripke. This is full.
Yeah. Oh, it's absolutely chock full. Obviously, we have a character named McGee. Which
executive
producer. One of the producers at some point, or directors at some point, is talking on the phone with Bob, who we just assume is going to be Robert Singer.
They also reference the monster truck and
so good.
The Scarecrow episode,
yes.
and just like a whole bunch of episodes.
Yes, and I like that it's called. Was it Hellhazers? Is the name of the movie rather than Ghostfacers? Which I actually, when I first was then doing a watch of the show, I had to go back and look, and like, they didn't make a movie out of Hellraisers, did they? Because I thought that would have been brilliant if they made like an actual. Because at the end of the first Hellraisers episode, they go off in the car and they're like, "We're going off to Hollywood, man. We're gonna go do it." And so I thought then, I was like, did they actually turn Ghostfacers into a movie, which would have been hilarious? Hellhazers.
Would have been.
So anyway, back to the episode and what happens. We get all those cool references, and then this is probably my favorite plot development in this episode is when when Dean gets the job as the PA, because the producer, character actor, I don't know his name, but just guy who's in lots of things, and you're like,
you would recognize him, and I don't know his name. But you would recognize him from Office Space because he's the main boss who's always like, I'm going to need you to come in on Saturday.
Yeah. He says, PA, get me a smoothie. And then Dean becomes a PA, gets really into it because he gets really into the craft services table and all the food.
Craft services is nothing but like gum and protein bars.
And for some reason they had Philly cheesesteak sliders and taquitos and all sorts of fun stuff on this real crappy sequel of a horror movie.
You can't put hot food out and expect it to sit out all day.
No.
Like at lunch they feed you. At the rest of the time it's gum.
Yes. And Dean gets to flirt with the actress who he's enamored with. Oh, but we find out, I totally skipped this part. We find out that our first death of the episode is not actually a death. It is an actor that the producers hired to fake his death so that
in order to spread social media lore that the movie's haunted.
Yes, which in 2007 would have been MySpace. And so everyone on MySpace is talking about how this set is haunted for this new horror movie now. And then our producer, McGee, no, not McGee, the guy
the guy in the suit, Office Space.
Office Space guy, he ends up dying. I wrote, producer sees some ghost boobies because we get one of the 4 gruesome deaths that have happened on the set. The ghost is there, and she like lures him to being hanged, which she was hanged by a rope was how she died, so it's all fitting. The boys salt and burn that actress's bones. We think the episode's over, but wait, there's more. We get a ghost of a guy who was sucked into a fan,
which like fans push. They don't generally pull unless you're in a Willy Wonka situation.
Yes, and this is where
he throws the not McGee, not Robert Singer guy into the fan, and he dies. And then all bets are off. So we learn. So the boys are looking through the script. They're watching the dailies, and they realize that the actress is truly speaking an Enochian chant.
Yes, so we get some actual angel resurrection business going on in Latin, and then they go find the guy that they thought was a PA, but is actually the original writer of the script who is allowed just to stay on set. And they say, "Ooh, what's going on here?"
And that part's not clear because he's like, they ruined it. They took my beautiful words. It was so accurate. Like, it really was a book about summoning demons, and they made it trash. What was his end?
I don't know. And I would love for us to either go back or find a reason, given everything we know after this point in Supernatural, right? Like, this guy clearly knows some stuff.
He should be a hunter.
Yes, or
for him to know all of that,
he's up to some real nonsense.
Yeah,
because he knows this.
He knows a lot. He has that talisman. He's summoning the ghosts and forcing them to do his bidding. So who taught him hoodoo? Who taught him Enochian? Where did he learn these things?
And what other movies is this going to happen in now? Because there's obviously someone out there who
bought the script from him, and he had a pretty interesting contract to be able to put in that he got to stay on set. So, like, what was his end goal?
Yeah, there's a lot of questions unanswered.
It's true.
In this episode.
But the episode's so good, I don't really care.
No, not at all. I love that we get a trailer for the movie in the middle of the episode. It's so good.
And then, so the way that it ends is that the ghost summoning writer is going to try and kill the sleazeball writer. But Sam and Dean save him. And then he breaks his talisman of his own accord. So he knows enough to know how to summon and control these ghosts, but not enough to know that if he breaks the talisman that he uses to control them, that they're going to rip his back apart like it's a string cheese.
Well, they never explain really the talisman.
They don't explain anything.
There's no lore behind it. It's not like a golem, right? At least like when we get a golem, we're like, oh, okay, you know that you have to.
We don't get the golem until season 11.
I know that. But like when you do, in X-Files, you get a great golem episode.
That's true.
And you know that you got to take the... Also, Simpsons. You get a golem episode.
I love the Simpsons golem episode.
Is so good.
So good.
Oh.
In fact, that's what I thought of the entire time. Talk about copy of plot. The whole whole episode, I'm like, come on.
It definitely is Simpsons. And so you got to take the script out of its mouth or the little thing. So a lot of lore unanswered or unaccounted for, maybe on purpose because they have the excellent thing in the middle of when they're talking about when the producer's like, I don't get it. How do they hear the incantation from hell? Aren't they coming back from hell? Isn't that such a far? Where they have super hearing? I don't know. Just throw in an explainer, and that's literally the explainer is they have super hearing or something.
And then at the end, they have him holding up the cell phone, which is how Sam and Dean defeated them. And he's like, "You learned there's an afterlife, and this is what you do." And he's like, "Hey."
Yeah. They make it, and we get a rudimentary hellhound glasses with the cell phone cameras finding the ghosts, which they never use again. Ever.
Either their cell phone camera or
so
this technique of finding
ghosts that they encounter, they never bother just to whip out their cell phone cameras and use again. So great episode. Don't
Great
skip
episode.
it.
Don't
Don't skip
skip
it
it.
at all. This is the episode that got me into watching this show for real, and getting
I think
bought
the
in.
lesson learned is like you have to watch Supernatural in an order someone prescribes to you based on your personality, someone who knows the show. So let's talk about how our rules played out. Toxic masculinity we counted twice. One when the sleazy boss is trying to get her alone, and once when the producer guy calls the woman pumpkin.
Yeah, it was creepy.
And there were maybe more than
There's
that.
probably more.
Someone dies happened a lot. It happened 8 times. These are death-heavy episodes. Oh, both the boys get bone zoned in these episodes. So I don't know if that has anything to do with anything.
They're clearly grasping for viewers at this point. But there's
except
no
we don't
sex
get
scene
a
in the second
Dean
one.
sex scene where
'Cause
he's
we
all
weren't
like
super-
naked shouldered.
Because she wasn't really like the main part of the episode.
I don't care.
So.
Show me that torso. Get
but
that shirt
but
off.
we had a Dean sex scene in this season
Yeah, I don't care.
earlier on. So this season they're clearly going for sex sales.
Jump scare happened 3 times. Positive masculinity we counted once, where Sammy shed some tears for his one-time werewolf girlfriend. Fake names only happened one time. The Landis and Dante.
Oh no, actually there was another time the people on set were calling him Ozzy.
Oh, that's right. You're
Yeah.
right. We didn't count that.
Yeah, we didn't count it.
EMF happened once, and we just had to stop counting the pop culture references because Hollywood Babylon was so full of them. We counted 5 before we stopped.
Yeah, there's too many.
Whew. Oh boy. Well, these were again one good episode.
Yeah, don't watch
The Heart.
The Heart.
Skip it.
Instead, go to season 11 and watch the episode that starts out with someone's heart being taken out. 'Cause that's a much better episode.
And really spend a lot of time thinking, no, I think this is right.
Yeah. And going, I think this is a later season episode. This reminds me just of a later, because it is.
Sure
Yeah, no, it is.
No, it's good. Thank you for listening. Please, if you had a good time, go on and, like, rate, review, do all of that stuff.
Subscribe.
It means a lot to us, and it helps us go up in the ratings. So, spoiler alert, I think that we are going to have a sort of branding repositioning between season 2 and 3. So let us know what you think now. Please join us in 2 weeks for our next episode, which is season 2, episode 10. We'll be watching Folsom Prison Blues and what is and what should never be. We're getting close to the end of season 2.
Getting real close to a good meaty part of the show, which is season 3.
That's right. So thank you so much for listening, and please remember your Gank That Drank lessons learned.
Which we just said, which is...
Let someone tell you how to watch Supernatural.
Yeah. And always have your cell phone camera handy in case you need to see a ghost, I guess. Is a rule we don't ever pull out again.
Be excellent to each other.
And remember...
And
party on, dudes.